Alright, out here working on this 60 F250 with a 302 swap. I hopefully should get this thing to fire up today. Got that battery tray made. I actually just used one of my wife's old cookie sheets, just a piece of flat stainless that happened to have this little lip at the end that I needed, because for some reason this battery box is like 3/4 of an inch higher on one side than the other. And I got thinking, well, I don't want to make a steel one because it'll just rust out again down the road. So I was like, oh, stainless. And just happened to see it sitting on the kitchen counter, so went ahead and confiscated that from the wife. Luckily she's cool about it. So I did make a first rendition. Luckily the cookie sheet was big enough to make two. This one worked fine. I think it looked a little better, but I don't know why I didn't think about it. But when I put the battery in the middle here, the very edge, it kind of, I mean, just barely, but it wasn't, this isn't rigid enough. So on this one, I carried the edges the full length. Then I actually cut and bent the tab and screwed it so it's super rigid. This battery's, 30 pounds, and it's plenty strong to hold it now that it has those ridges on both sides to keep it from flexing. So everything is ready to go. I gotta tighten the 4 bolts on that Y pipe just so they don't rattle around, but next step is really just doing some wiring. I did finally get the clutch to work. It was a little bit of a hassle because this bell housing is off of an 80s. Let's see if I can get some light down there. It's off of an 80s F-150, and that style clutch uses these plastic lines, and they attach in with these kind of fittings. And there's a little rubber O-ring that goes over the end, and then you just slide that in, and then there's a pin that pushes in and just sits in that groove. So there's really, it's quick, it's easy. But that master cylinder obviously used a flare attachment because a hard, basically brake line would go into it, and then it was attached with a flare fitting at both sides. So luckily I found on Speedway Motors they had this clutch line kit that had the fittings. And this fitting style actually on the website listed as early GM and some Jeeps, but it worked perfect on this too. I matched it up and used my caliper and measured it, and the O-ring fit on perfect. So I mean, it is the same. It says it fits other makes also, so I don't know why. It must have been, I think the Mustangs used a different style, so maybe this was only an F-150, and F-150s in the 80s were kind of phasing out from manuals, more automatic based, so maybe this isn't super common. And then I did get, this turned out to be a little more, I guess, cobbled than I would like, but just because that male flare fitting that goes in there, there's just nothing out there for adapters to go from this fitting came with the kit, and that goes to an AN4, and then it goes to the stainless cable. So there's just nothing out there to go from this, I think this is a 1/4 flare, into an 1/8 NPT fitting. So I know it's not the greatest looking thing. I was hoping to just get one adapter and delete a bunch of that, But looking and looking and looking and going to the parts store and even going through the brake line adapter fittings, I figured brake line adapters would have something, but just going to that 1/8 inch MPT, and then obviously AN isn't really used for brake lines or anything like that, so that's the kind of final product. It works just fine. I mean, the clutch pedal feels great. It throws the fork all the way out. It doesn't leak. So this is kind of a, you know, it's going to be used as a farm truck. It's not going to be a show truck. You just want it to run and drive good, have plenty of power, but we are keeping it kind of a farm fresh theme. So that's, you know, that's not going to be a problem. He's not going to be popping the hood at car shows as long as it works and there's no issues with it. Should never be a problem. So today, now that I got the battery in, like I said, I'm just kind of going along instead of rushing and firing it up just to fire it up. I'm confident there shouldn't be much or any issues with it. So I'm going to keep wiring everything. Got to wire up the temp gauge, the oil pressure gauge. After I get those two wired up, I'll probably hook the battery up and then spin that oil pump up with the drill, verifying on the gauge that it's building and holding oil pressure. Once that's done, I'll drop the distributor in. There's not a real ton of wiring to do on this truck. I need to run a wire from the alternator. It's just a GM one wire. Just run that over, connect up to the battery cable. I'm gonna clean up all of that. I don't even know why that thick of wire runs into the cab, but get that all figured out. Hook the gauges up, like I said. Electric choke. Then obviously there'll be the tack wire to the distributor and a power wire on the distributor, and that's really it for getting it running. So, and then obviously, like I said, once the distributor's in, run the spark plug wires and all that, and then go ahead and try and start it. Fuel line's all done, mounted to the frame. That's all hooked up. There's a bracket right there. That's all hooked in, so everything's mechanically ready to start. I just gotta do some wiring. I will have to get a throttle shaft to run. The one that was on the 6 cylinders just a little bit too short, so I will have to get or make a longer one. Doesn't look super complicated. I'm sure there's tons of kits. There might even be a throttle linkage kit at the parts store. So yeah, if I can get this thing fired up today, it's Sunday, and then, you know, the rest of the week tinker on finishing up. Like I said, he wanted me to get everything basically working. I noticed the headlights turn on, but the turn signals don't work. And then I've got those new taillights to put in, and, you know, just go through the truck, make sure wiring wise everything's working, like the wipers work and the blower motor works. The horn doesn't work and the turn signals don't work, so I'll go ahead and figure those out, get those working. And like I said, if I get it running today, there's really no reason now that the clutch works. If it runs today, I could drive it. I won't drive it today because we got it's currently snowing, so I'm not going to take it out and get it all sloppy and dirty while I'm still got stuff to work on. But, you know, if it runs good, I'll obviously have to run it. I'll double check how long, but like I said, it's got a flat tappet new cam in it, so I will have to break that in. But since it's got oil and coolant and the fan's hooked up, the belt's on, I can run it. theoretically, if there's no issues, I can run it as long as I want to break that cam in. But it's been a while. Like I said, I think it's 2 to 5 minutes at 2,000 RPM to get that camshaft broke in. And then once it's broken, it's just tidying stuff up. Like I need to put the 4-wheel drive shift lever in and get a shift boot. And then yeah, I'm shooting for next weekend, giving it back to the guy. But we shall see. Hopefully later today I'll record a video of this thing firing up. Thanks.